Good morning and welcome back to this channel. In this video, we will be talking about DHCP failover. Now, at the end of this session, you should be able to know what DHCP failover is all about, and you should be able to install and configure DHCP on your own as well. Let's begin. Now, the first question we have to start asking ourselves is, what is DHCP failover? Now, when I talk about DHCP failover, it's very easy. All that we're trying to say is that a mechanism that we put in place to make sure that two DHCP servers are configured to manage what? The same pool of what? Addresses. So I can have a range of addresses, like say the range of address I want to list out the client computers is like from 192.168 maybe 1.10, and then the ending ID will be maybe 1.20. So what I'm going to do is that instead of one server performing the task all the time, I'm going to what? Failover it. So when I use failover, DHCP failover, now I'm trying to say is that one of the servers could go down anytime. So if you want it to be highly available, providing making sure that DHCP server lists out addresses to client computers 24/7 without problems, then what we need to do here, so you can see from this picture, I have my first DHCP server here. So DHCP server 1 is here and DHCP server 2 is here. So what is going to happen is that this server here is available, this one too is available. So whatever DHCP configuration that is done here, and we know that DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and its task is to list out IP addresses to what? Client computers. So when this client system here tries to obtain address from the DHCP server, once the server 1 and server 2 is available, automatically one of these servers lists out addresses to this client computer. But then the situation whereby one of the servers goes down, what happens? Now basically we all know that when you set it up, or when you configure DHCP or set up DHCP on one server, what is going to happen is that if that server goes down, then automatically when client computers try to request an address from one, or tries to request for address from the DHCP server, what happens is automatically they wouldn't be able to get an address from the DHCP server. They're going to get a PIPA, which is automatic private internet protocol. So what is happening here is that we have an assumption that we are providing highly availability, making sure that situations whereby one of the servers goes down, there should be a different system here. So one of the server, if this server goes down, this server 2 should be able to to list out addresses to this client or DHCP client. So whenever someone requests for an address from the server, we are setting up in such a way that we are providing fault tolerance, providing the fact that this server and that server, what is happening here is happening here at the same time, but it's going to load balance it. So load balances simply means that it's going to divide its task into two, or the load is going to be divided into two. It gives part to this to play and give part to this also to play. But then with the absence of one of the servers, yes, so when a client requests for an address from a DHCP server, the DHCP server would be able to list out addresses to client computers. So basically that is what happens. So once all this goes on, they come together to share the load of assigning assignments for that pool, and then basically it's going to provide backup for each other in case of network outage. So basically that's what we meant by DHCP failover. I hope it's clear. Good. For that being said, let's move on to our practical labs for the day, and we see the number of computers we're going to be using for our practicals, and then we go about it and see how to go about it. Alright, now DHCP. So today's lab we would be talking about DHCP Server Failover Cluster installation and configuration step by step. So we're going to see how to set up DHCP Failover Cluster, how we're going to install it, and at the same time how we're going to configure it as well. So remember we said after installation you need to configure. If you don't configure, then there's no way it's going to work for you. So basically that is it. So now let's have an idea about my demo environment. Good. Over here I have Active Directory server. So I have 3 servers in this lab. You're going to use 3 servers. Now the first server is Active Directory server. When I talk about Active Directory server, then it means that it's going to become is the domain controller. Now the host name for this Active Directory server is domain controller. The IP address is 192.168.1.50, and then the RAM for that system here for that server is 1 GB. The domain is local. Now the secondary server that is going to be set up as DHCP node 1, so I decided to call it, that is DHCP node 1, DHCP node 2. Remember, these two servers are going to come together, and then they're going to divide their workload or share their workload in such a way that this one performs a task and this also performs a task as well. So basically that is what is going on. They are going to balance their addresses. So this one too has the address, a host name node 1, and then the IP address is 51, and then this is node 2, and the IP address is 52, and then the RAM for node 1 is 2 GB, the RAM for node 2 is also 2 GB. So basically this is what is going to happen here. Alright, now let's see the steps. Now, step-by-step installation configuration of DHCP Server Failover Cluster includes this. So now, the first task we need to do is to try to install DHCP Server on both servers. So the two nodes that we talked about, so this and that, we need to install DHCP Server rule on this node 1, and we need to install it on node 2 as well, because they both going to be configured to set up as a failover DHCP failover. So basically we're going to begin installing DHCP server rule on this server node 1, and we're going to install it on node 2. So that's the first steps that we need to do. So as you can see, we should install DHCP server on both servers. So we're going to install it on node 1. We're going to install DHCP server rule on node 1, and then we install it on node 2. Let's see how we do that. Alright, so basically this is my lab. So I have my domain controller here, which you can see the address 1.50 as I said, and this is my node 2. Let me log into node 2 so you can see what I have here. You can see node 2 is 51, and then we can check on node 3. Sorry, node 2. When I log in, you can also see what the address as well. So this is 52, and then the RAM 2 is 2 GB. So basically that is it. But then let's check to see if what I'm saying is very true. So you can check the IP address of your system by using command prompt or even graphical user interface. Remember, this lab, most of the things we're going to do here, we're going to combine a graphical and a command line together. So I'm going to check my IP address using the graphical means. So with the graphical means, on the taskbar far right hand side, you just right click on network adapter, you click on open network and sharing center, and then you click on change adapter settings. Then the adapter we're dealing with is this one. So if you check my adapter, you can see I have the address 192.168.1.1, that is for node 1, and then the DNS is that. So basically that is what we have done here. Now let's check it for node 2. By way of time, I'm going to use command prompt. So I'm going to combine two keys, start plus X. Then I'll be able to get this prompt. Then I'll go for command prompt admin. Let me increase the font so you can see what I mean. Remember, the first one I chose was what we call graphical user interface, and this one too is called command line interface. So I'm using the command line interface. So let's see. So with the command line interface, what I'm going to do here is very simple. To check my IP address, I just type the command ipconfig, and then it gives me the IP address. So you scroll it up, you can see the IP address of your system. So basically this one is 52. I will clear the screen by typing CLS. Now the next thing is, I want to find out the name that was given to my computer. I can also type host name, and then I'll get to know. The graphical means is to click on File Explorer, this PC, right click on this PC and select properties, and then you'll be able to see the name as well. So basically that is it, node 2, and it has been joined to the domain. Remember, these two systems, node 1 and node 2, needs to be joined to this server. That's the domain controller. So I have already joined node 1 and node 2 to the domain controller. For now, I mostly believe that each one of us here knows how to install, knows how to join a system or a server or any system to a domain. That one, nobody has a problem so far. So that is that. Let me check it for our domain controller too. So right click on the network adapter. We're using a graphical means. Then we check. We can see from here, change address settings. Then adapter card will pop up. Then we can check the address for this system, and you can see it's 1.150. So basically that is it. Remember, we said the first thing we need to do here is what? Is to install DHCP server on both servers. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to install it on this server, node 1 and then node 2. Remember, the systems has already been joined to the domain. So let's try to install DHCP server role on this server. So to do that, I can click on manage and then I'll go for an option, add roles and features, or I can have an option. There's an option in the middle where we have configure this server, the option 2, add roles and features, whichever way you want. Then you select next, stick to next, it pays your name, so you can see the name or the address of our system. So there are 3 adapters, but that's the adapter we're using, 1.51. We click on next. Now we check on DHCP server, add feature, click on next. So remember, dynamic host configuration protocol, the function of it is that it's going to enable you to centrally configure, manage and provide temporarily IP addresses and related information for client companies. So any client system that tries to obtain address from the DHCP server, automatically it places ARM addresses to client computers. That's what we said. Now we click on next, 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 and then install. So we wait for the installation to take place. Then we go back and install it on node 2. The same process. So server manager, let me minimize this. Go back to server manager. This time around, I'm going to use manage and I'll add roles and features. Then I have an option here, proceed, next, 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 and then DHCP server, add, next, next, next. Please remember, DHCP server or DHCP failover cannot be set up when we have only one server or when we have only one DHCP server. That is not possible. It has to be at least 2 DHCP servers should be available before you can proceed to perform your task. Good. So now after the installation, so we are waiting for the install. So we have to install. So our first task is being done. We have to install DHCP server on both for servers. Then afterwards, we create required scope in one of the servers. So I'm going to create a required scope for node 1. Then afterwards, I'll configure the DHCP scope options on the same node 1. Then finally, I'll verify that from what? The second server, which is node 2. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now we can see node 1 and node 2 DHCP server is automatically done now. So after the installation process, what we need to do is that we need to now click on complete DHCP configuration. So I check on the box. So I click on complete DHCP configuration. Alright, so this is the interface. So it says that it's going to perform to complete the configuration of DHCP server on the target computer. So we need to create the following: DHCP administrators and then that. So what we need to do is we need to authorize our server if domain joins. So if I have not joined this DHCP server or this server to the domain, then I can't do this. But if I've done that, then I have to authorize it in Active Directory. So that's basically what it means here. So now I click on next, then I have to authorize it. So automatically I've logged in as well. Node 1. You can see from here, I also log in as let's see the account here. That's also node 2. So this is not the administrative right, so I have to log in as administrative right or administrative permission. So I have to specify, and then I'll type in the administrative right, which is ken/administrator, and then a password. Then you click on OK. So now you can see it has been authorized now. Then afterwards, a comment. It says that to set up the various configuration has error. Click on OK. But then it is done now. So I can then what? Close it out. Good. Then I do the same thing for this one to complete. So complete DHCP configuration. Down to the same. Specify. So administrator. And then my password. Afterwards, you comment. Okay, and then you close it out. So now we are done with it. So the next step here, as you all know, we are supposed to create required scope on node 1. So let's proceed to do so. So this is node 1. So on node 1, we're now going to create a required scope. So now after installation of the DHCP server, if I want to get an interface of it, so now I close it out. Then what you need to do is to click on tools. So any role or feature that will be installed, it appears under tools. So after I click on tools, I'll see it here. So you can see DHCP. So I just check on it, DHCP. Remember, we're going to do it only on one side. So you can see the other side, which is node 2. Let me close this one also out. And the tools you can see is there. But you can see they are all activated, but there's no scope created. So we're not going to concentrate so much on node 2. After everything that is being done here will be updated on this side. So that's replication. So we work solely on node 1. So we need to create a required scope on node 1. So over here, I need to expand my fully qualified domain name, which is node1.ken.local. So I expand that. Then you can see this is IP version 4. I'm dealing with IP version 4, so I expand IP version 4, and you can see a scope range of address. So we need to add a scope, and a scope is a range of IP addresses assigned to computers whenever they are requesting for dynamic IP addresses. That is DHCP. So now what we need to do is that we need to create a required scope by right clicking on IP version 4, then go for an option, new scope, and then click on next, and then give it a name. So I'm going to call this DHCP, and then I'll add scope to it. Good. I can give any description, but for my case, it's okay. It's optional, so you can provide anything of your choice. But remember to give a name that is useful. Then I click on next. Then what do you think whenever somebody requests for an address, what should be who should get the first address the client system should be getting? So for my case, or for this lab, I prefer 192.168.1.100. So the first person or the first client system that tries to obtain or request for address from DHCP server is going to get 100. Then the last one also is going to get 192.168.1.201 or 200. So basically that is it. So from 100 to 200. So the first PC or the first client which tries to request for an address is going to get 192.168.1.100.101, 102, 103, you know that, till 200. So after 200 is leased out, whoever tries to request for an address from DHCP server will not be getting it, but then it's going to get it from what? It's going to get it from the APIPA, that is Automatic Private Internet Protocol. So the length here you see in the server mask. I click on this. It says the address range you specify is too large for a single scope. Do you want to create a super scope? Okay, so if it's too large, alright, let me just reduce this to something like okay, let me use 60 and 70. So you proceed. No, I don't want to create a new super scope. Alright, I want us to log in as administrative right. It seems it's preventing us from doing one or two things. So let's switch user. Let's log in with administrative right. The account I've logged in doesn't have administrative right. So let me just switch the account and switch this as well, so that we can use it on that side. And then let me log in and sign out first. So sign out, log in here too, and then we sign out. Good. Now let's log into node 1. This time around we're going to log in as the domain administrative right. So and then we provide the IP address. We log in on node 2 the same way. Again, it's my domain name, and then the administrative right, account, name and password. Alright, and then that is all my team one here, the domain controller. Good. So it's refreshing, so let's wait. Good. So I can complete it again. So complete configuration. And then we can click on this. Now this is the right account, so we authorize it and comment. Then it says that create security group, so everything is done successfully. So I could then click on close. I'll do the same thing for this side. Complete. I want to click on this, then comment, close it out. Then we move back to node 1. Then we will launch DHCP. So we need to configure so now we need to create the required scope now. So now let's try with the creation of the scope. So you right click on IP version 4, new scope, and give a scope a name again. I decided to call it DHCP scope, and then I proceed, and I provided the start ID 192.168.1.100 192.168.1.200. Proceed. Then I want to exclude 192.168.1.101. Nobody's getting 101 and nobody's getting 102. So 192.168.1.102. So I'll add, so nobody's getting, so the first client system that requests for address is going to get 103. Then I'll click on next, then I'll leave it to default. Click on next. Yes, I want to configure these options now. Then I need to add the IP address of my router. I don't have a router, but for my case I prefer using the same as the domain controller's ID, which is 192.168.1.50. Then I can add this as well. Then I proceed. And that is my domain, so I can remove it or I can type it again. So I can type the server name. So the server name for my domain controller is king.local. I can type it again for verification purposes. I can resolve, and that is it. I can add it again. So basically it's already added, so there's no need. Then I click on next. I don't have any win server, so I'll proceed. And it says, do you want to activate the scope? Yes. And I click on yes and then finish. So now the scope is now activated. Everything is done now. So I need to just refresh the page, and then you can see now everything is done now. So if I click on the scope, and you can see it is activated, and then you can see it is also authorized. So basically that is it. So you can see from here. Let's say I want to create another scope, and this one too, I'll call it maybe DHCP. Click on next. This one, maybe the address range will be 192.168.1.201, and then 192.168.1.250. Click on next. Range and mask complex to the existing one. So what I can do is that 100, 200. I'm just alright. So you cannot use the same thing again unless I change the range. So basically I'll stick to what I have here. So I have it done, and you can say whatever. This is what I did. I have excluded, as you can see, it says that IP addresses starting from 101 and 102 has been excluded. So the first person, though the range starts from 100 to 200, but the first person who's going to request for address is not going to get 100, but rather it's going to start from what? Because 101 and 102 is exempted or is excluded. Whoever gets address from the DHCP server will appear here for us to see. They can decide to what? Preserve, and this is the scope options. So you can see the scope options here. We provided the router IP address, and then DNS address is also show you there, and then standard domain, which is king.local. So that is it. So now you see we've created a required scope on node 1, and then we have configured DHCP option. So the next thing here, or the last step, is to verify DHCP failover server settings on node 2. So let's check it out. Remember we said all that we have done here, when we move on to node 2 and check it out, you should get the same thing. So we're almost done. So now let's go check it out, whether what you've done here has actually taken effect on this side. So refresh the page, and then you can see automatically whatever is happening there has happened here as well. So you can see repetition that's repeated itself here as well. So that's the scope, that's the range we created, and that's the name of our scope, and then the pool that we've created so far. So basically that is it. So it means that if node 1 goes down, yes, so if a client system obtain address, is going to request it from this side, and if it goes down again, you can also request it from that side as well.